This was the number 2 team in the country. Penn State wins 30-8. We're live here in the Bryce Jordan Center to recap it all. Just when you think Penn State couldn't get any better, they somehow just raised the bar another notch higher.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. My name is Zach Seyko, and I am your host of this live recap here in the Bryce Jordan Center. We're on Media Row. If there's a little bit of background noise, they went and took down the mat immediately, and now they're setting up for what looks to be a concert. I don't know the Bryce Jordan Center schedule here, but what I do know is that Penn State defeats Iowa 30-8. That's the number 2 team in the country, and it wasn't even close. And Penn State's lineup wasn't even at full strength with Braden Davis being out. So we'll address all of it. I'm going to start with the best moments from the dual meet itself. Tyler Kasak lifting up Ja'Cory Teamer and fist pumping and hyping up the crowd, all while wrestling through the blood timeout, the injury that he sustained. Tough as nails. That's a Penn State wrestler. That is textbook definition of what a Penn State wrestler is right there. Extremely gritty. Of course, we're going to go through just as much as we can here before we get kicked out of the Bryce Jordan Center, if that happens. This is a live show, so of course, let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. And like I said, I hope the sound is okay here because we do have some background noise. But Tyler Kasak is a title contender and completely handled Ja'Cory Teamer. I have gone on the record. I mean, it's easy to see it when you watch it on TV or you watch it in person. And Kasak is by far the strongest wrestler in this 157-pound weight class. That is a former NCAA runner-up who lost to, once upon a time, Levi Haynes, and then Tyler Kasak gets the best. So whatever it is, whoever the Penn State wrestler is at 157 pounds, Ja'Cory Teamer does not have an answer for whomever that may be. Last year, it was Levi Haynes. Last season, this season, it is Tyler Kasak. But that moment, that is going to go down as one of the most iconic moments in Penn State wrestling history, where Tyler Kasak lifts Ja'Cory Teamer off of his feet and holds him there, and then with one arm, fist pumps the crowd, and you can't even hear, like Kasak said. He blacked out in the moment. He had no idea what was going on. He just reacted to it instinctively. But that's how the final 10 seconds of the match, and that encapsulates what Penn State wrestling is in the present. That's the number 2 team. Iowa clearly frustrated. I heard that it did not go. I didn't get the chance to hear from Tom Brands, who had media availability, but obviously he was not a happy camper. And the Bryce Jordan Center environment, the fans selling out this crowd, I mean, Penn State put on an absolute spectacle, and scoreboard aside, right? I think it's about the individual moments that Penn State had put together with Tyler Kasak, with Luke Lillidahl setting the tone extremely early as the first bout and getting a tech fall against a Joey Cruz. Then fast forward to Mitchell Messenbrink. That's number 1 versus number 2, right? I don't mean to bypass Tyler Kasak. Like, let's think about this. Ja'Cory Teamer was the top-ranked wrestler going into this one. It was 1 versus 3, but I imagine that Kasak has to be the overall favorite, if you will. I know there's some people out there that say it's debatable because 157 pounds, kind of some of the other classes, it's stacked pretty well. Teamer's going to be back. Those two are going to have a rematch sooner rather than later. But Kasak should be the favorite now at 157 pounds. But then, too, like I said, go to Luke Lillidahl. I don't read into that Dean Peterson matchup that much. It happens. He was going to have his first loss. I like the response. I take more into account the response as opposed to what actually happened against Rutgers. Then I mentioned Mitchell Messenbrink. That's number 1 versus number 2. Mikey Caliendo is a better wrestler, but you wouldn't know it based on the way that Mitchell Messenbrink dominated from start to finish and just absolutely wore him down. I also think that it was fitting. I think it was a fitting finish that Messenbrink wins and secures the tech fall before the match is over, before the time runs out. on a stall call, because that's all Mikey Caliendo could do. Singlet pulls. He resorted to just stall after stall after stall. So I think it's very fitting. It is very fitting that Mitchell Messenbrink wins that way against Mikey Caliendo. It's his weight class to lose, and I really don't see anybody challenging him at 165 pounds. Name somebody in the chat, please, by all means. It is Mitchell Messenbrink at 165 pounds. Somebody's got to show up. It's got to be somebody, because if that's the number 2 ranked wrestler going up against Mitchell Messenbrink, it's smooth sailing from there. It is absolute cruising for Mitchell Messenbrink. Of course, we didn't see Gabe Arnold. We saw Angelo Ferrari. That the announcement came out, was released. Iowa releases its lineup. I guess a little bit of strategy there, because they don't burn Angelo Ferrari's red shirt. We'll see what happens with, I'm not going to try to project Iowa's class or lineup next season, but they do have options. Gabe Arnold and Angelo Ferrari can't both wrestle at 184, but it was a fight. It was a rock fight. Angelo Ferrari at least gave everything Carter Starachi could handle. I think Ferrari certainly played into the crowd. It was very entertaining. It kind of felt like the Jordan Burroughs when they were here for the Olympic team trials. And it was just, slow to get up, to adjust his shoe, adjust his sock. And Angelo Ferrari kind of played into that villain mentality. So I respect that. I am a little bit surprised. Here's the thing. The result actually doesn't surprise me. 2-1, I think Carter Starachi just handled business the way that he had to. That's really what it boiled down to. I'm not going to read extensively into that one. It's like, oh man, a true freshman who's going to redshirt this season got the best of Carter Starachi here. There's a moral victory. I think Starachi looked at it as Gabe Arnold dodged me, but Starachi was right. If you watch the interview, if you watch the press conference, he said, I think the other guy's going to wrestle. I don't think, is he even their starter? I think Carter Starachi knows Iowa's wrestling lineup better than Iowa does in itself. So Starachi, 2-1, not the prettiest of victories, but it still is a win, because I can only imagine if Angelo Ferrari, now I'm not saying that it was going to happen or that it would have happened, but I can only imagine the backlash or whatever ramifications would have happened had Ferrari actually pulled off the unthinkable, but that's why it's unthinkable, because it didn't happen. And Starachi is going to continue to move on. It was basically, you could just see the veteran. I don't need to exhaust myself here. That's the way Starachi approached it. I can still get a victory wrestling at half speed. And that's essentially the way I view it, because he's got important matchups against Michigan, Ohio State, Illinois, right? There's still other dual meets to be had. So smart to conserve the strength. Braden Davis didn't wrestle, right? Let's talk about that. Braden Davis was not in the lineup. We heard from Cale Sanderson, Tyler Kasak, and Greg Kirkfleet after the match. If you want to see that post-match press conference, it is up on the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcast, so you can hear it directly from them. Braden Davis is dealing with bumps and bruises. It sounds like it is a short-term injury. I don't think there's anything to be concerned with. If we look back at the Rutgers dual meet, he definitely doesn't look like himself. I can honestly admit that. And he got the win, too. That is a win against Shaver, who is a top 10 ranked wrestler and somebody that Braden Davis will certainly meet again at some point, whether it's at Big Tens or NCAAs. Davis, precautionary. You would have liked to have seen him go up against, and Drake Ayala's dealing with an injury in its own. Kurt McHenry wrestling up a weight class because he's supposed to be at 125. Gave him his best, but we were robbed essentially of Davis versus Ayala. But I'd rather see it later than both those guys not be 100%. And then, of course, Josh Barr. Again, this is kind of, quick reaction, instant takeaways, right, to rattle these off. Josh Barr was the truest loss, if you will, right? Because Drake Ayala is going to be Kurt McHenry, who's wrestling up. But the only true loss in this one is Josh Barr losing 5-1 to Stephen Buchanan. Buchanan looked better. Buchanan looked like the better wrestler. I guess that is no surprise. I thought it would be a little closer, but there were just, it doesn't change my confidence level in Josh Barr. I fully believe that he is one of the contenders at 197 pounds. He still has a little bit to go, just a little bit. And this is good because this happens now as opposed to the Big Ten tournament, for example. So if this matchup happens again, which I fully expect it to at 197, who knows, right? There's Jacob Cardenas that we get to see in a week's time here in the Bryce Jordan Center. But so that's going to be kind of that follow-up match. It's like how Luke Lillidahl responds after losing his first career match. Josh Barr same thing. How do you follow it up, especially with the type of competition? Because Joey Cruz is not the same caliber at 125 that a Cardenas is for Michigan at 197. So I'm eager to see Barr's improvement, how he goes about his routine this week and everything else. Because that matchup against Cardenas will tell us a lot more. But Stephen Buchanan definitely had a step. Josh Barr is certainly benefiting from the gas tank that he has compared to some of these other opponents, whether it is a Michael Beard or a Stephen Little. Barr just always had more, and this time he met a wrestler that was able to go toe-to-toe with him in terms of stamina. And I think that, I mean, that's what you're going to get out of Ferrari. That's what you're going to get out of Stephen Buchanan and Cardenas as well. So we'll see what Josh Barr can't just, and I'm not saying he's only winning on stamina alone, but it certainly helps when he has the extra energy going into the third period and he's able to just wear opponents down. Stephen Buchanan did not let him do that. He executed his game plan. I thought he looked a little faster than Barr at times. Both of them were worn down, but it seemed like Buchanan had a little more left in the tank. Appreciate everyone hanging out on this live show here on Locked On Nittany Lions. We're in the Bryce Jordan Center. Appreciate your time here on the show. When we return from break, we'll get your thoughts. I see the live chat is very active, so thank you so much for contributing your comments. And we'll talk about this one more. Penn State 30, Iowa 8 here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime wants to create the thrills, the memories that going to these live events, these sporting events, are some of the greatest moments that they can be. And not just for your average sporting event, the big game as well. The big game's coming up. We all know about it, and Gametime has tickets available for the big game. So the energy, the excitement, the connection with other fans, it's all unmatched. And the thrill of potentially seeing your favorite team win a game, win the big game, it's a memory you will never forget. Gametime makes it easier to create those unforgettable moments with their new feature called Gametime Picks. It filters out all the fluff and shows you only incredible deals on incredible seats, so you can focus on what matters, being there, being present at the event. Gametime Picks, it's featured right at the top, so you can go to the Gametime app or go to gametime.co. It's all listed for you. The super deal is right at the top to show you incredible value on the seats. You can preview your point of view ahead of time before buying, and then all-in pricing is a game changer, no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. That was the number 2 team in the country. They didn't look like it. At least Penn State made them not. 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10. And I'm not saying that, imagine if a Braden Davis does wrestle, or at least he's healthier and can go up against Drake Ayala, because that's not, yes, you expect Drake Ayala to win because of past history, but at the same time, Penn State could have taken 9 individual bouts against the Iowa Hawkeyes today. Crowd certainly played a factor. Penn State wrestling would have gotten the job done either way, if that's in Rec Hall, if that's in a different venue, if that's at Iowa, right? Doesn't matter. Name a time, name a place. Penn State wrestling will get it done. But the Bryce Jordan Center atmosphere, if you have not gone to one of these dual meets, I highly encourage that you try to make an effort to, if you can, right? If the opportunity presents itself, try to plan for next season, or hey, back-to-back weeks, Michigan will be here in 1 week's time next Friday. Let's go to the live chat. Thank you so much for contributing your thoughts. Let's go. Let's talk about it. Exactly. I mean, Penn State, there's only so much to say because the competition, no one is going to challenge Penn State. We all know the answer. We all know the ending to this story. It's a matter of can Penn State beat Penn State, right? Because the records were set in the NCAA postseason a year ago, and Penn State's getting ready to reset those records, right? So it's not Penn State versus Iowa, Penn State versus Oklahoma State, Penn State versus anybody. It is Penn State versus other versions of Penn State. That's where this conversation is. Josh Barr looked really good in a tough match. Absolutely. I don't think that Stephen Buchanan dominated him, but he certainly had a step. It was going into the third period for me. The overall takeaway there was that Buchanan had the advantage in riding time, and I think it was 106 at that point in time. And then Barr's not able to hold him for about 7-8 seconds. And so Buchanan gets out quickly for the escape. and then you need a takedown in that moment because now you have the riding point, and that changes your whole strategy. So it's not just about, hey, we can go to sudden victory and everything else. You now have to go on the offensive, and it's just not a neutral frame. It's not a neutral frame of mind for Josh Barr. He has to go on the offensive. He has to be the attacker, and Stephen Buchanan can let him come to him. He can let Barr come to him, and I think that changed Barr. I think Barr fully anticipated that this was going to be 1-1 or something like that. You're not competing unless you're not going to get a stall call against Buchanan there. Just Caliendo. Just Caliendo. Tyler Kasak, I called it 2 podcasts ago. Wrestling at home made a huge difference and was very tough on top. The Tyler Kasak needs to be the odds-on favorite to win at 157 pounds. Changed my mind. And what a way to play. You can tell he was feeling it in the moment. I know that the Penn State wrestlers are going to say, hey, we'll wrestle at Rec Hall, we'll wrestle anywhere, we'll wrestle at the Bryce Jordan Center, and that they appreciate the fan base, right, and stuff in them. But this means something. The Bryce Jordan Center dual meet, this means something for the guys, but they don't want to overly show it because it is about business as usual. You can't, it is that, to take a page out of football, 1-0 mentality does play a factor in here. You don't want to give too much credence to one opponent, one moment or another, because then it takes away from those other ones, and then you kind of get caught, right? So Penn State, but you can just tell the Penn State wrestlers, even though they're kind of, they're coy about it, but they do like this moment here. I mean, Kasak, seriously, I can't think of a moment that defines where Penn State wrestling is right now than you having a long, lengthy blood timeout, carrying the top-ranked opponent. You lifted him off of his feet. You're holding him there with one arm, and you pump your fist into the air, and then you hype up the crowd afterwards. That encapsulates where Penn State wrestling is in the present, and what this lineup is as well. Mitchell owns Caliendo. Mitchell owns everybody, but Caliendo, I guess, is the closest wrestler to Messenbrink. We'll see. I didn't even mention Shane Van Ness because there were so many iconic moments from this dual meet. Levi Haynes looked convincing as everything, but Shane Van Ness, I think, is important to bring up as well. So that's why we have the live chat, right? I don't want to I just look past Shane Van Ness. That's 17-6. That's a major decision against number 2, Kyle Parko. The Ridge Lovett matchup. And we said this on the podcast, and Jeff Byers agreed as well, that it was simply, it's a wake-up call. So Ridge Lovett just had his best. Home environment certainly matters here, but Shane Van Ness, I never sat back and said, well, I don't know if he's a national title contender or anything like that. Did it raise some red flags? Absolutely, because he doesn't get a takedown, right? Shane Van Ness is so offensively gifted. But in this match, it was, they were going back and forth, and then eventually Shane Van Ness just hit another gear that Kyle Parko could not keep up with, and that's where Van Ness is. So for me, it's Ridge Lovett and Van Ness until otherwise, because Kyle Parko didn't have an answer. And that was kind of the same way with Ridge Lovett and Van Ness that first time around when they were out in Nebraska. But Van Ness, 17-6, what a response these past 2 dual meets from Rutgers and now to Iowa. Van Ness is in a really good spot, and he's national title contender. This team is just built different. Absolutely. But that's the number 2 team in the country, 30-8. I on average, and to finish up one of the preview podcasts, it was the one with Jeff specifically, where I said, anticipate that Penn State wins at least 8 of these. Penn State's going to win 8 of these individual bouts and then kind of go from there. It was in the ballpark of 26-6, give or take. And Braden Davis doesn't wrestle, so who knows how the score ultimately unfolds if Penn State's even at full strength. And that's what we were expecting, right? We know the answer to these questions. We know the answer to how Penn State's going to perform. Tough loss for Barr, however, he will get better, save ready come March. Josh Barr is already starting to peak, right? And he's only going to get better. For what's impressed me most about Barr is that these wins, because look at the Stephen Little victory, the gap he has on Michael Beard, who's going to be an All-America type of wrestler, and he's not far off from Stephen Buchanan, but there's a slight gap, slight margin of error. Josh Barr is doing this early in the season. It's not like close against Michael Beard. Okay, he gets away with one against Stephen Little, and then Buchanan ultimately wins convincingly. I don't look at that one and say, man, that was a real decisive victory. I think if Barr's able to hold him down for a few seconds longer, and that's 1-1, we're getting a completely different matchup in the third period. We're getting a completely different game plan for Barr to execute. But that didn't happen. He had to adjust on the fly. Stephen Buchanan is technically sound when it comes to defense, so you make adjustments. But this is a learning moment, kind of the same thing with Luke Lillidahl against Rutgers. This is a learning moment for Josh Barr, but Josh Barr still has better wrestling ahead of him. So he's doing this now. He's contending with the #1 wrestler, and it's really close. Imagine what he's going to look like come March. Big Tens, NCAAs. These two might wrestle 2 more times at a minimum. Well, at a maximum, I suppose, right? Gabe Arnold is a fraud. We are calling him out. He knew he wasn't wrestling, and he shot his mouth off. The world is full of fake tough guys. I thought I'd ask Kale in the post-match press conference. I thought I'd ask him, hey, Angelo Ferrari wrestling against what do you think of the strategy? And he just said they have 2 good options, right? They have 2 really talented wrestlers at that weight class, so you can't go wrong. Obviously, Iowa has to be strategic because they don't have an answer for Penn State until Carter Starachi. No, even when Carter Starachi's gone, because Penn State just has so many talented wrestlers, right? Does Josh Barr stay at 97? Does he go to 84? Zach Ryder defeated Gabe Arnold in the World Team Trials, if I'm not mistaken, right? So no, they don't have an answer even after the fact. So they have to be strategic even just to have a chance, right? But there's no other way to sum it up. I don't get why you do that. You spend 2 years calling out a pending 5-time NCAA champion all to ride the bench. Did he make the trip? Did he even come over with the team from Iowa to Happy Valley tonight? I don't know. I didn't see him over there cheering his team on. I don't know what the travel arrangements are for Iowa, but that's just it. It's embarrassing. Who knows how he's processing it? He probably doesn't care at the end of the day, but he should. This has been a multiple year thing. You talked a big game coming out of high school, and you don't wrestle in the season before because you're what? Okay, you're going through your red shirt, fine. But now you're the starter, right? You're the starter, and Carter Starachi calls it the way he sees it. Oh, I thought the other guy was the starter. He won the tournament. I think he's the better wrestler anyway. Well, case in point. Like I said, Starachi knows Iowa's lineup better than Iowa knows its lineup. But whatever this reason is, did he dodge him? Here's how I frame it. It's not even about, I don't want to wrestle Carter Starachi for the sake of losing or anything like that. It's more embarrassing, or it's more of a gut check for Gabe Arnold to talk that big of a game, and then your coach to look at you and say, as an undefeated starter, you're not even our best option at 184 to take on Carter Starachi right now. You're a year ahead in the program. We're going to go with Angelo Ferrari because we think he gives us a better chance against Carter Starachi. That's where that one hurts. Not talking the big game and talking all this smack and everything. It's your coach going up to you and say, we don't think you're good enough. We think we have somebody better to take on Carter Starachi now, and it's not you. We'll finish up recapping it here. Penn State wins 30-8. We still have plenty of more to get to in the live chat as well, so do not go anywhere on this live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's icing on the cake. Download the app or head over to FanDuel.com to get started and bet just $5. And if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's over at FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, an official partner of Super Bowl 59. All right, we're in the home stretch here. live still in the Bryce Jordan Center. They have decided to let me stay here and recap this one. So we'll wrap it up here. But thank you, really. I can't do this show live from the Bryce Jordan Center without all of you tuning in. So thank you so much for joining me late on this Friday night to recap this one over Iowa. Let's see, we're gonna pick back up in the comment section. I was hoping Carter would have done more. True, I think so. Like I said, I addressed it earlier if anybody missed the first segment, but let's hash it out again. Carter knows his place as a pending 5-time NCAA champion, and he can wrestle that way, passive, not as aggressive, and game plan and just say, hey, my 50% is better than your 110%. And that's what Angelo Ferrari gave. So kudos to him. Shout out to him. I think Ferrari's a good wrestler. It is Iowa, but I think he's a talented wrestler. He's clearly better than Gabe Arnold because Iowa decided to go with him on short notice like this. So again, Strachey not wrestling at 100%, knowing that he can do this and still pick up a victory and not feel challenged in any sort of way. Ferrari had no answer. Like I said, I like the crowd involvement. It's another one of those iconic moments where it was this, villain mentality and the crowd let Ferrari have it. So it was a really, really unique moment in my mind. Barr's loss is liberating to an extent. I think that's fair. I absolutely think that's fair. It's a teachable moment, right? You have to kind of get that one off of your chest. Luke Lillidahl, Josh Barr, no difference. It's the response to Cardenas that I'm looking for now. I'm not going to continue to look at the Buchanan matchup and say, okay, this is what Barr needs to do differently. The Cardenas matchup is going to tell us more, and hopefully they wrestle, right? But that one in a week from now in the Bryce Jordan Center, once again, it is Barr's response. How do you handle the loss? Do you let one turn into two and Cardenas's elite competition? So it's not like when Luke Lillidahl is going from Dean Peterson to Joey Cruz, not trying to disrespect Joey Cruz, but that's a much different matchup there, and you should expect Luke Lillidahl to win the way that he did, set the tone, set the pace. But you're going to face one of two, maybe both, in Big Tens and at the NCAAs between Cardenas and Buchanan. Penn State Wrestling eventually wins 200 matches. They will force some rules against us to make it fair. Goes back to the point about how Penn State's second string team, the backup wrestlers, would finish what? Second place? Probably no lower than third place at the NCAA championships, right? If you let Penn State, so that's Zach Ryder, that's the Mirasola twins, right? All those guys would form a secondary lineup for Penn State. They would most likely take second at the NCAA championship. 66 matches in a row. 66 dual meet wins in a row. They have not lost since 5 years ago on this day. And Cale Sanderson said we don't look back on it. We look at the present and we look at the future. There's only so much we can do. It's history, and I think that's a good point because then you get caught up in the past. So Cale Sanderson has it figured out. I don't need to question him. I don't need to challenge his mentality. Whatever works for him. So moral of the story today, don't dwell on the past, good or bad in this case. Coach Brand should worry about the disrespect exhibited by guys on his squad that didn't even wrestle. I'm sure they'll address the whole, who knows? I don't even know if they'll address the whole Gabe Arnold thing. It's done and over with. They didn't wrestle. I was looking forward to Carter Strachey humbling Gabe Arnold, but just was able to keep his energy and handle business against Angelo Ferrari. Good luck to both of them in the future, right? Whichever one ends up being the 184-pound starter, maybe Gabe Arnold goes in the transfer portal. Who knows? Kirk got to pull some Kassar energy and just bulldoze Gable. Okay, so now we're looking ahead. Yeah, Ben Keeter against Greg Kirkfleet. We're waiting for that because he kind of had a questionable one against Slavakuski of Rutgers, but I am eager for that Gable Stevenson Greg Kirkfleet matchup because everyone just kind of assumes that Gable Stevenson's going to win, dominate, and that Greg Kirkfleet has no chance because of what has happened in the past. Gable Stevenson's been out of folk style wrestling for quite some time. I know that he's picking things back up and he looks as strong and dominant as ever, but Greg Kirkfleet has been chipping away at this for quite some time now. That's all I'm saying. You give Kirkfleet the time to close that gap. I don't think we're going to see a true, it's like, oh, this is Gable Stevenson's, this is his sport, nobody can question him at heavyweight. Don't think we're going to get that. I think we're going to get Kerkvliet's best. That's the standard. 10 out of 10 All-Americans. The standard is to break all of those records. How many individual champions can you get? How many wrestlers can you get into the finals? And little by little, right? It's 6 wrestlers a season ago. Can you raise the bar to 7? Luke Lillidahl. Braden Davis is not a long shot. Hopefully he gets healthy. Hopefully he gets right. But Davis is definitely on the outside looking in at 133, but Ryan Crookham's out, so things change. And I want to see that weight class be at the best of the best. But, circumstances do apply here. Davis is healthy and available. 133 does get a little easier with Crookham being out. Luke Lillidahl, Bo Bartlett, Shane Van Ness, Tyler Kasak, Levi Haynes, Carter Starachi, Josh Barr, and Greg Kerkvliet. It's not just about 10 out of 10 All-Americans. These guys all have legitimate chances to make an NCAA final. I'm not going to sit here and declare victory that Penn State's going to go at 10 out of 10 because that's crazy. That's ludicrous. But they have the opportunity. They can all do it. Who has the best chance and what have you? It's about getting there, right? My point is about getting there. And all of these guys have a chance because of the caliber of wrestlers that they are to make the NCAA championship as it is. Penn State has an opportunity at every single weight class. I don't look at Luke Lillidahl and say, oh, he's a true freshman. He's adjusting. He's learning. No. He is one of the top 4 wrestlers, objectively speaking, per the eye test. Forget about the rankings for a moment. Luke Lillidahl will finish at least top 4 at 125. I think Braden Davis can do the same. Bo Bartlett, Shane Van Ness, Tyler, you know where I'm going with this. Up and down the lineup, Penn State has a top 4 wrestler, objectively speaking, when they get to the tournament setting, where you're going to see a lot of these guys in the semifinal at a very minimum. I can, if you want me to guarantee, I'd say 9 out of 10. I'd say 9. Something's going to happen, and I'm not applying to, I'm not alluding to, it's Davis. He's on the outside looking in. He's the least likely or anything like that. I do think it's very realistic that Penn State gets 9 wrestlers in the NCAA semifinals at least. Crazy that I'm talking about that. Someone's going to clip this and keep that as hopefully it's a flaming hot take, right? Angelo Ferrari did a good job, though. He will be a finalist soon enough. Like I said, tip of the cap to him. I thought he wrestled well and handled the environment. That is a good wrestler. That is a good wrestler. Van Ness at 149 pounds was unstoppable. I knew wrestling at home made a huge difference here as well. Great job, Van Ness. And to not let the past affect you. That Ridge Lovett match happened. It's done. It's over with. And Van Ness, I'm focused on, in the mindset of I'm focused on wrestling Kyle Parko. Is Angelo better than AJ? I really do want to see Carter Starachi and AJ Ferrari wrestle in that whatever pay-per-view type of style. They meet in the middle somewhere because I think it would be a stretch for Carter Starachi to go up to 197 pounds. I think Ferrari would have an advantage there. So if he can cut and bulk up till maybe somewhere in the middle of 190, I'd pay good money to watch that pay-per-view matchup. I really would. If healthy, Shapiro and Kasak would be a barn burner. Yep. That I don't really have any other context to add. That Kasak should be considered an NCAA finalist. He should be one of the favorites. It's not Ja'Cory Teamer. And I think he should be over Shapiro, a healthy Shapiro as well. Oh, that's an interesting discussion point. As Tom Brand's gone, and Dake takes over. If he wants the job, I'm not sure how Iowa's coaching situation's going to unfold. And we got to wrap it up here. We're over half an hour, so I appreciate all of you. But let me just kind of share my thoughts about Iowa, because they sacrificed the future to do what exactly this season? Jeff Byers and I discussed this in the offseason that, Penn State's lineup is going to be back and better than ever and reset the records that they did just one season ago. And Iowa completely sold out on the future, invested in the transfer portal, all to do what? Finish second? And not only second, finish a clear distance of second place from Penn State. So that's why it's interesting to sacrifice it's not only about the future, it's the integrity. That's going to hurt recruiting. a lot. Sure, you might, okay, maybe be able to build through the transfer portal and you get a Ja'Cory Teamer, you get a Kyle Parko, but do you expect to get 10 in the portal every single offseason? I hope they don't think that. And I think that's going to cost people their jobs at some point in time. This investment to go all in and, like I said, sacrifice, it's more than just about the future and the talent and the potential that you have down the road, but to try to attack this Penn State team when they are truly at the best, nobody was catching them, and you give up all of that, including the integrity, the trust, the foundation. That's an issue, and it's going to, like I said, that's going to cost some people their jobs at the end of the day. Penn State takes down Iowa 30-8, 66 dual meet victories in a row. They'll make it 67, 68, 69, 70, right through the rest of the season. The season's going by fast. We're almost finished, and we're getting close to the end here. They do wrestle Michigan, so they should win, but they're, of course, overall, they'll extend that streak to 67, but there will be some key matchups, of course. Michigan does have some talented wrestlers. Of course, everybody's going to circle, as you should, Josh Barr versus Jacob Cardenas at 197. Of course, we'll have thoughts and reactions and previews throughout the week to talk about that one. That's going to do it for me here in the Bryce Jordan Center. This is truly a privilege. Thank you so much to all of you for supporting the show, for supporting what we do here in terms of talking about not only Penn State football, but of course, Penn State wrestling, Penn State basketball as well, your favorite Penn State sports teams. Thank you for spending your Friday night with me here to recap Penn State versus Iowa. If you are new to the show, my name is Zach Seyko. I'm the host of this daily Penn State Nittany Lions podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day.